All right, what's going on, everybody? This is Omar. I'm checking in on a Saturday evening. I hope everybody's having a good weekend out there. Been having a blast today, man. I went to go visit a client of mine earlier this morning. I knocked out ran a couple errands, did a little bit of MCing, a little freestyling, knocked out a couple MC freestyles, just playing around in the car, and I was able to get a workout in today. So I'm having a pretty good Saturday. I don't plan on going out for the rest of the evening. I'm just going to sit here and chill. Maybe do a couple things, maybe cook something, something like that. But I just wanted to share this video. What I want to touch on tonight would be having accountability for yourself. That's what I want to touch on tonight is having accountability for yourself. Um, this is definitely something that we can all touch on, man. Something that we can agree with that we all should do a better job of is just being more accountable. Just looking in scripture, whether it be Matthew 7:5, where it talks about before you remove the plank out of your own eye, before you remove the speck or sawdust in your brother's eye. And then also in 2 Corinthians 13:5, where it says that you should examine yourself to see where you are in the faith. And this is something that can be applied to both people that are inside the church and outside the church, is just being more accountable. Because being accountable to ourselves, that's a hard thing to do. That's a very hard thing for us to do because it's all about ego and how we look in the eyes of other people. It's one thing to say, "Oh, I'm in charge. I run this, I run that," but when it's time to get called down to the carpet because you didn't fell short in some areas and you have to give it explain yourself, you have to give it account for your shortcomings. Oh, now our fingers get to twiddling. Oh, all of a sudden our voices start to shaking. Well, because being accountable is a hard thing to do. I've mentioned this in my promo video that I'm all about self improvement, man. I'm all about self improvement. So, how in the world are you going to improve yourself if you don't hold yourself accountable? How in the world are you going to improve yourself if you don't even see where your shortcomings or your weaknesses are to be able to correct those things? You see what I'm saying? So this is why I want to touch on it, because we have a bad, not necessarily bad, but I should say that we don't like to hold ourselves accountable, both men and women. Both men and women. One thing I learned, and I mentioned this in the previous video, as far as one of the rules to leadership, is everything is your fault. Everything is your fault. Everything is your fault. Even when it's not your fault, guess what? It's still your fault. Anybody who wants to be a manager, be a supervisor, be a husband, be a father, um, be a leader in the church, being a leader in any kind of community organization, everything is your fault. Even when it's not your fault, it's still your fault. So that's the kind of mentality and mindset that you have to have when it comes to being a leader. Because when stuff hits the fan, they're not going to be looking for, the kids maybe have something to do with it, or these people had something to do with it. They're going to look at whoever the leader was. How in the world did they let that slip? How did they let that go on? How did they let it get so off track to where it actually becomes a disaster? That's the kind of mentality and mindset you have to have. In my video, I've done a couple videos. One of them was a video that was called My Past Failures. I posted it both on my YouTube and on Facebook. And I talked about the areas where I fell short, where I got fired from a job, where I didn't make the cut for a career job, where I quit my high school football team. I talked about and discussed those areas that I fell short. It was another video. I'm trying to think of the name of the video. I can't think of the title, but I was talking about those morals and values to live by. And I was pretty blunt and honest and told you the areas that I needed to work on. One of them would be lusting after other women. Yep, I got my hand up right here. I'm guilty of that. I know that's an area that I need to improve. It's okay to be attracted to women. It's okay to be sexually attracted to women because that's how you were designed. But when you're lusting, whether it be single women, whether it be married women, when you're lusting after a woman, that seed gets planted up here and it stays there long enough before it turns into action. So if it stays up here long enough, it's going to turn into something, and it's going to end up, you're going to end up going down a road that you didn't think you would see yourself on. Because if something stays in here for that long, it won't be long before it turns into an act or an action. And a lot of times it'll be to something that's to our regret. I admit at times I'm a little undisciplined. I am a little undisciplined. I know I'm a little silly when it comes to certain things. I can be a little brash as well, as far as the way I explain myself or some of the jokes that I may say that may offended somebody, may come off in a rude way. You see what I'm saying? My brother, he had touched on this a couple weeks ago when me and him was having a conversation. He said, Omar, you're not compassionate. I can use a little bit more compassion. So those are just a few areas that I know that I can work on, that I can improve in. So that's what it means to hold yourself accountable. Just to give you a couple more examples is you know how some women, they complain about meeting certain guys. The guys are, below their expectation. These guys are trifling. These guys is this. These guys is that. And they sit there and complain, but has it ever occurred to them that the only constant in the equation is you? Have you looked in the mirror and say, you know what? I'm the reason why I'm attracting these kind of guys? Have you looked in the mirror and say that there may be some issues that I need to address before I start dating, before I get into the next relationship? Because I notice that I'm attracting these type of guys, these no good type of guys. Some girls out there having babies by these no good types of men, but then they got the nerve to complain that all men are bad, all men are dogs. Only thing all those dogs got in common is you. I almost want to hold up a mirror. It's like, have you looked in the mirror lately? So we all got to hold ourselves accountable for our actions, for our thoughts, and the things that we do. Now, another thing I want to touch on too is that, and it's tied into the whole accountability thing, is that for me, I never want to put on a facade like I'm too perfect. I never want to put on the facade that I'm so perfect that I don't make mistakes. That I'm some type of superhero that's far above the masses of everybody. I don't want to have that facade like that. We know people like that. We know people that walk around like their stuff don't stink. I'm talking about both inside the church and outside the church. People inside the church and out there in the world. We know people like that. Do you know anybody that's like that? They won't admit nothing. They won't admit any kind of flaw they had, anything that they struggle with. It's almost that they've been mature. I've been mature my whole life. I've never needed any help from anybody. I actually had read that. Now that I think about it, I've read that in the 48 Laws of Power book where it talks about, never appear too perfect because that could end up being your downfall. You want to get everybody to start envying you and hating you to the point where they want to take vengeance on you. Try to act like your stuff don't stink and see how people are going to treat you from that point on. And it gave examples to the point where this one guy, his lover actually killed him because he put on his facade as if he was so much better than his partner. It is totally okay to admit certain flaws, even if it's just little things. It's okay to admit certain flaws. Them are the type of people that I kind of gravitate towards. I've admitted my flaws in a number of my videos. In this video, I don't want to appear too perfect to where it seems as though like I'm a superhero. And I think that especially like members of the church, how I think they can actually benefit from that. I think there are members of the church who act like they're too perfect. Look, when it says that we all are nothing but filthy rags, nobody's righteous, that's exactly what the Bible means. That's exactly what Scripture is saying. So why are you acting like you're so much better than somebody else? Even among my family members, they know that I'm a faithful churchgoer, and I do work around the church, and I try as best as I can to set an example for both those inside the church as well as my family. But I don't when I'm around them, I don't put on the facade as though I'm way better than everybody. I just try to set the best example as I can. If you ask me a question, I'm going to give you an honest answer. But how are you supposed to be? How are you supposed to build relationships if you don't want to admit the things you struggle with? Because, like I said, we all struggle with something. We all struggle with something. I'll talk about it in the previous video as well. We all struggle with something. So if you act like your stuff don't stink, the people that's outside the church or just anybody in general are going to act like, oh, well, I must be pretty good too. But if you actually admit certain flaws or certain things you struggle with, then what that's going to do is that's going to prick something in their mind to where they get to thinking, you know what? There are a couple things that I should work on. How do you overcome that? How do you go about working on that issue? So like I said, man, we just got to do a better job of holding ourselves accountable. We should be to the point where nobody has to check you. You should be checking yourself. You take personal accountability to another level to the point where you start checking yourself. Oops, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, my bad. Oh, man, I got to do better in this area. Get to that point where you start checking yourself to where nobody else has to police you. You policing yourself. That's what's going to get you respect out here. So this is my video. I try not to go too long, but personal accountability, man. Everybody got to look in the mirror. Everybody got to evaluate where they're at, what their weaknesses are, what their flaws are. Stop acting like your stuff doesn't stink. It's okay to admit that you have certain flaws, certain weaknesses. Even if you are, quote unquote, that superstar. Even if you are somebody that a lot of people admire and look up to you. It's okay to admit certain flaws, man. That just makes you human like everybody else. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll catch y'all later.